All right. Looking forward to that. Good TLDR episode. TLDR has been kicking ass recently, right? You guys had a pretty big interview. I saw I was getting some love there recently.
Yeah, we had what was it Axel Alonso, actually the head of AWA. We'd had him on a little while back. We had him back on to kind of do a larger conversation. There was another thing they wanted to promote, but more about all the books from last year, some stuff from this year. Got a little nugget about a Garth Ennis thing that's going to be coming from him this year, which obviously, for those who aren't familiar or maybe doesn't ring a bell, The Preacher, he's the writer for that series. The Boys, the writer for that series too. So some good stuff come from him. Still writing comics, so love to see that.
All right. Well, yeah, check out the TLDR podcast. And let's now shift gears to our main topic.
Mm-hmm.
The Pale Blue Eye exit survey, now streaming on Netflix. Hit us with a synopsis, Nick.
Yes, we got to do a debate soon because I've had this for a while. Not that I don't want it, but it's makes life tougher for you for sure. A world-weary detective is hired to investigate the murder of a West Point cadet. Stymied by the cadet's code of silence, he enlists one of their own to help him unravel a case. A young man the world would come to know as Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, whoa. This is written and directed by Scott Cooper, based on the book of the same name, The Pale Blue Eye, by Louis Bayard. Bayard. There we go. Starring Christian Bale as Augustus Landor, sometimes referred to as Gus. I like that nickname. Augustus down to Gus. That's good.
Yeah, that is a
Sometimes
good
just
one.
called Landor, too.
Landor's a good
Harry
one.
Melling as Edgar Allan Poe, who I thought was fantastic in this. I thought he has a kind of a creepy look about him. He's in a couple other movies that I can't recall at the moment, but he's a kind of a recognizable face.
The Dursley kid.
Come again?
The Dursley kid from Harry Potter.
What's that?
Harry Potter.
The Dursley. Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, we'll get to know that next week. There. Okay, for sure.
That's right. Yeah.
Simon McBurney as Captain Hitchcock. Timothy Spall as Superintendent Thayer. Toby Jones playing another quote unquote good doctor here is Dr. Daniel Marquis. Of course, he was who was he? Who was he in the MCU, Nick? What German scientist was he there?
Yeah, right? He's a German scientist who is this, like the right hand guy for Red Skull. And then in Captain America Winter Soldier, when they go to that bunker, it's his brain or whatever that's in the computer.
Yeah. Definitely recognize. He looks like Zoloff. Oh, nice pull. Nice pull, Nick. That's good. Yeah, deep in the recesses. Harry Lottie as Artemis Marquis. We have Fred Hetchinger as Randolph Bollinger, Lucy Boynton as Leah Marquis, and Gillian Anderson as Mrs. Julia Marquis. And then also, who's it? Gene Pepe as Robert Duvall with a special guest performance there. So yeah, we'll be talking about him a little bit later as well.
Yes. As for the critics' reception to this received a 6.7 out of 10 on IMDb with a 65-73 Rotten Tomatoes split and a 4.2 out of 5 on Google reviews, with 93% of Google users liking this movie. Also worth noting, too, we don't talk about Metacritic a ton, but this got a 56 on there, which I think is a pretty good rating. Right?
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know what it means. I threw it on there just because we don't have any box office, where it was a Netflix release. I was looking for a little bit more.
But MovieRankings.net,
yeah, exactly. They'll give you the whole breakdown of it. But MovieRankings.net, that's the Lights Camera Barstool site. They do a lot of ranking stuff too. They didn't have it on there either. They haven't watched it yet, so. We'll deal with Metacritic there, but that's a wide array, a cornucopia of reviews for you to choose from.
Sure. Yeah. Well, what do you got for your tweet length review and score?
Yeah, I'm giving this an 83 out of 100, Nick. Equipped with a great setting and 2 strong performances, The Pale Blue Eye is a solid murder mystery that drags at times and teases the audience what I think they really want.
Okay. I was curious where you were going to land from a grading perspective. That's my big thing. Because I thought, okay, well, you know what? Let me get into mine real quick. So I gave this an 85 out of 100. I love the ambiance of this movie. That is a big thing for me. Christian Bale is great, as you mentioned. So is Harry Melling. There were times where it was a bit hard to understand people, and that happens. But if you're trying to not do subtitles, that can be frustrating. And I really didn't want it for this movie, but kind of had to cave. The ending enhanced this for me from a C plus, like talking like a 79, maybe an 80, but a C plus to a B. Very excited to rewatch this, and we'll get into more of that why.
All right, so we both like this movie. We don't have to ask ourselves that question. It seems both give this a B to a B plus there, depending on your grading scale. What was the most rewatchable scene, Nick?
I mean, I don't think there is a thing that I consider a rewatchable scene. Like maybe when I watch this a second time, and I think that's going to be big for this movie. I see what you have written down, but I don't even look at those and say, yeah, it's rewatchable. Like that's, we talk about action stuff it's kind of tough.
Yeah, I mean, I think in this sense, I just look at it like, what were my favorite scenes? What was the most memorable one when I think back
That's
on
fair.
this? Just because again, it's not like an action scene or anything, but when
fair.
Landor is confronting Dr. Marquis, the Toby Jones there, about all of his satanic connections, and him being like the great grandfather of a long lost witch hunter from France, which goes under crazy. And by the way, this is a full spoiler podcast here.
Yes.
This is a loosely based story. This story came out again, mid 2000s, late 2010, something like that, 2013, I want to say.
Right.
And it's a historical fiction story. Yeah. That some of it's true, like it takes place in 1830 when Edgar Allan Poe was a West Point cadet, but none of this stuff is true. He wasn't solving murder mysteries with a former constable.
The only thing that was really like, even then it's not real like stuff. It's like Easter egg type stuff. Like Edgar Allan Poe did write like a short story on a character named Landor. I think it's like Landor's Cabin. And then obviously the, what's his favorite poem with the Nevermore and the Raven? Like that was the one he cited. We're talking about Lenore and all that stuff. That's also mentioned.
The Telltale Heart.
Telltale Heart. Thank you, Jesus. So yeah, there was. I'm sure there were some other things that were. Well, it seemed like this whole thing, like he obviously he has that dream, but it seems like the whole premise of this could have been the inspiration for the Telltale Heart too. So I'm sure there were other Easter eggs that huge, EA Poe junkies probably picked up that Wes and I, would miss.
Yes, but there were a couple moments where I had the Leo DiCaprio meme moment when pointing him from the TV on the couch, like, oh, I got that reference. So that was a couple good, cool moments there. But yeah, so I thought when Landor is confronting Dr. Marquis about all the satanic stuff, and when he makes the connection with the painting that he has hanging in the house, and he goes back to Jean Pepe, and he's like, who is this guy? Let me get a picture of him. And it's like the same picture, and he sees this like huge book that's tucked back in the bookcase, and then he presents everything to him, and Dr. Marquis kind of confesses that it's like somehow like not his fault or something. It's like, you don't understand.
Yeah.
And they just kind of gloss over all that, which I wish they would have gave more of. But I thought that was very interesting because that was like probably, the climax of the movie.
Sure. Yeah, no, definitely the climax of the movie. 100%. Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, like there's no question like that was like you see it all kind of come together and stuff. You already knew, but like finding out like, okay, no, he wasn't just a witch hunter. Like it's something more and everything. And just once you see that logo or the symbol, whatever you call it, it's like, oh shit. Like this is because we'll talk about in a second. Like there's just so many people that you go through, as I went through, considering like, is this the killer? Is that the killer? Like who is it throughout the entire thing? So the way they brought it together in this portion of the movie was very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and let's get into that right now. I think that's a good spot to do. Yeah, so did they hide the killer well? Obviously, that comes into the twist. That was my other rewatchable scene at the end where the big reveal. But and again, how many people did you think were the murderer maybe over the course of everything?
So, by the way, I think that the twist reveal at the ending is the most important. Like, it is my favorite one because, like I said, it just enhanced this movie so much more for me.
Sure,
and the big thing is like, okay, so again, spoilers and everything. I looked at it. And I went back and looked at the cast and everything. I'm pretty sure I had 7 people that I considered for this, like as the killer. I never thought it was Edgar Allan Poe because it's just like it's not him. There's no way this is a thing.
Too obvious, right?
Yeah, and also, like, I didn't know if it was a historical fiction or not as I was watching it. Like, I didn't know if this was loosely based on a real story or whatever. So it's if I'd known it was historical fiction, maybe. But even then, but still, I was like, no, it's not him. So that helped me out. And then I never thought it was Landor, like it proved to be. And for me, the entire time as I'm watching this, like Lauren and I are saying, it's kind of hard to it's hard to understand at moments. So you got to put subtitles on. But then you think, like, am I missing something? Because you watch, enough mysteries. We've seen enough over the years. You see breadcrumbs where it's like, okay, it could be this person, it could be that person, and then you kind of start getting your lean. And sometimes you get surprised, okay, but in this, it was like tiny breadcrumb here, tiny breadcrumb there, like barely anything.
Yeah.
Nothing really pushed you towards anyone. And even though I considered the girl in some capacity, I considered her brother more than her. I consider her in some capacity. It was still like, like, I don't know. It wasn't really until it happened with her that I was like, okay, all right, it's her. I wasn't like crazy blown away, but when we saw all the Landor stuff, it was like I was blown away, and I'm really curious if you ever predicted it at all.
No, I didn't. I'm just real happy that they didn't make Edgar Allan Poe the murderer and go into like a far off direction with this. Obviously, I didn't really know about the book. I didn't know about the book previously, so obviously they had more of a framework to work with there. But I'm watching it unfold, and I'm going through the same thing that you were saying. And it's like he's like, I think your murderer is a poet. And then it's like, who Edgar Allan Poe is, and I'm like, this cheeky son of a bitch. Like, is he just gonna sit there and like dangle himself in front of the detective the whole time and like until he solves his murderer? Yeah. But so I'm glad they didn't do that. But I had no idea that it was Landor. I thought that it was weird that they didn't bring up what happened with his daughter. Right? They mention it. They mention it in passing. Him and Poe. And they're like, they drop it completely, and they don't bring it up for the rest of the movie. So you're kind of left behind. So they had to clean that up, that loose end up, in some way. So that was kind of an interesting way to do it too. But other than Artemis Marquis and Dr. Marquis, who was a shady character the whole time, like that was the good doctor just missing shit left and right, the contusion on the back of his head, the note in his hand, like all this stuff, it's like, so he was obviously trying to cover this up and cover his son's tracks.
Yeah. I mean, it proved to be true in the end. I'll tell you what, I considered him, his son, his daughter, and his wife all at points throughout the course of all this. I also considered Fred Hetchinger's character as well. He's the second cadet that got killed because like he was in those there was like a series of movies, horror movies a few years back, like Goosebumps or something like that he was in. He was kind of a dink there. There's like an Amy Adams like thriller that he's in, and he's like the bad guy there. Spoiler on that. So like I thought, oh, they're gonna do this character again. I actually thought about Captain Hitchcock.
He was the guy who was competing with Poe for Leah's love, right?
Yeah, he jumped him. Yeah, the one. Yes, that is exactly what it is. The guy who jumped him. I thought it was Captain Hitchcock. So the guy who went and retrieved Christian Bale at the start of things. I never thought it was the guy who plays Peter Pettigrew, the superintendent. It was never him. But like, so I had a lot of people like, in the course of it all that were on my radar. And
so your head was spinning the whole time then.
Yeah, because Wes, I mean, like seriously, other than Poe, like yes, I understand your point on the doctor, and he did cross my mind multiple times in the course of all this. But then like when he throws kids in the mix, it's like, I don't know. Poe would have been so freaking obvious. It would have been so, like you said, it would have been so frustrating. We would have come on here and we would have ripped it if it was him from the jump. But like with Landor, like I'm watching this and I'm like, there's no, like, you don't have a lead here. There's not a single person who's like a strong lead other than kind of Poe. Like I see your point about the doctor, but still there was enough misdirection and not enough leading to him that I'm like, who the fuck is this? Like, what am I missing? And being frustrated the whole time. And then like the entire time, there's a reason there was no fucking evidence pointing to anybody else because it wasn't anybody else. It was the one person who was controlling the evidence. It's crazy.
And it was amazing too. Like we can get into this and maybe what aged the worst, but it was a perfect series of events that happened for Landor to kind of carry out his plan. That he couldn't, like I'm not sure that anything could have aligned more perfectly than that.
Nope.
But no, so I'm with you on that. But I was mostly zeroed in on the Marquis family.
Sure.
What do you think is going to age the best from this?
Well, Christian Bale's performance, I mean, we've talked about it before, how great an actor he is. I mean, of our generation, he's in the conversation no less than at least that he's like the best actor of our generation, because like he's so dynamic. And I mean, like you have Batman, you have The Fighter, you have American Psycho. Those are the first three that I always think of with him. And it's like such a bizarre range, and he pulls them all off.
Sure.
So, and then he goes and takes this on, and it seems like a casual role he could probably just take, like, probably just got a couple mil for it. That's his quote, and he's just like whatever. And goes and kicks ass and doesn't say, like, he says enough, but like it's one of her
Yeah,
quintessential
I think
roles.
he's fine. I think he's fine in this. I think he was good. But I think this is like baseline Christian Bale. I think that's
Okay,
what you're getting, you know, 9 times out of 10, except you want to put him in a black and white suit with in front of a green screen for a Marvel movie.
okay.
I think you're gonna get like a really good. That's not to say it was bad. I think he's just a really great actor. I agree with what you're saying, but
Sure.
to me, it's Henry Molin. I thought he was
Mm,
like the one that was like really went away. It was like this guy was really good. This character was really good.
yeah.
Benoit Blanc type, kind of an esque, maybe cut from a similar cloth, an off-brand. I don't know if I can say that. Maybe Benoit Blanc is an off-brand Edgar Allan Poe. I don't know
Mm,
the order of operations there, but I thought he was very interesting. The accent, the way that he carried himself, but there's this like kind of meek and meager dandy, more or less, and in this like rough and tumble,
yeah.
army military fortress. But he still carried himself with like bravado and confidence and like kind of like this swagger around girls, and like he didn't really care that he knew that he was like, I don't know, maybe for lack of a better term, like a beta, like among
Sure.
everyone else,
Yep. 100%.
which
And
made him an alpha.
yeah, you're right. So and we've talked about this many times when we talk about what age the worst and what age the best. Sometimes we're talking in like parallel lanes, because it can mean a couple different things. When I say Bale's performance, I mean like when you watch this again, his performance is not going to sour at all. Like he does, like you said, he does.
Oh,
Like,
sure.
that's fine if you want to say he's not like not his best thing ever. I agree. Like it's not his best thing ever, but like you watch it again, it's right there. Henry Molling is the same thing, and on top of that, this like just him in general, like I wouldn't be stunned if Netflix says like, oh, this did well, because I think it was like top 3 as we were watching. It's been out a couple of weeks, so nothing mind blowing. But if it like does well enough, and it's probably not a high budget thing, it's probably mostly just paying the actors. Like, why not try and venture down this lane again? Because Henry Molling was very interesting, was good. That could age well from this, or Henry Molling's career. I mean, I know we saw him in what's that? Oh, the Old Guard. He was the villain in the Old Guard as well. So I think
Hmm.
he's shown, and he's very different in that role. He's a powerful dickhead in that one. So the range as an actor that he's showing too, and being a number 2, or I guess more of a supporting character in some ways in that one as the villain, because he's not at the center of it as much. Yeah, I agree with you. Henry Molling
Yeah.
more so than Edgar Allan Poe.
All right. How about simping? Edgar Allan Poe was simping hard. That's aged pretty good. A lot of people are simping these days. So was Bollinger. Bollinger was simping pretty hard. When she was sitting there playing the piano, and they're all just like gazing at her longingly from
Yeah.
behind.
Yep. Yeah, no, that was I mean, that is as bad as it gets. I mean, she was legitimately going to kill you, and you're upset that she's going to take the fall for it. Like taking the
He
fall
was
for
going to
what
do it.
Landor did.
Yeah.
She was bad. Like I don't okay, if you never kill a person in your life, but then you take a person who's dead and then you remove a part of their body after the fact, like 99 times out of 100, that's pretty fucked up. Like, unless it's like a loved one that you knew and like that's a thing. I guess that like maybe, but even then, it's still weird.
That's a pretty masterful trick there, saying that sacrifice is the ultimate form of love, right?
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
bad trick.
yeah.
Don't
Gaslighting at
say
its
that to me.
finest. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Simping though is just really like modern day courtship, right? Like courting. That was like the phrase back in that time, right?
you do that at a
I'm,
ball,
I'm
right?
courting this lovely dame.
Yeah. Well, I got another one for you. I think in general, like for anybody who watches this movie, I think the movie all around is going to age well, because that was what I was most excited about after watching it. Is like I'm now going to go and watch this again, and I'm going to be looking at this from Christian Bale's perspective of he's the killer, and No one else
Yeah.
knows that. And he is trying to find, he said it himself in the course, like, if you wait long enough, the killer is going to expose him or herself. I want to see, like, if he does that in any way and how he's, like, what he's looking for throughout the entirety of it, because that's all he's doing is who's going to take the fall for me. Like, I need to watch it from that lens.
Oh, I forgot about that line. That's the big giveaway, right? That kind of ties itself in. That's his revealing them.
Yeah.
So I like that. That's really good. Yeah, I'm with you on that. What do you think is going to age the worst?
Well, I mean, as much as I say, like, the movie in general is going to age worse, I think, like, watching this as a mystery, viewing it as that after, like, the first time is going to age poorly, because I'm always probably going to look. I would be willing to bet I'm always going to view this from the standpoint of, he is the killer. I know this, and I want to see, like, what are all the pieces that are moving in from that. It's not necessarily a bad thing, because it makes it rewatchable for at least a second time. But I think as a mystery, that's like any other mystery, kind of.
Yeah, I'm with you there. But this one offers, like you said, that rewatchability, almost like Fight Club, and you watch it from a different perspective there. How about First Dates at Cemeteries?
It's a good call about the Fight Club, by the way. But yeah, that's I gotta imagine who the fuck does that. I mean, that's perfect for Edgar Allan Poe, but, like, who does that?
Yeah, right. And a chick who's secretly into satanic worshiping shit. Who knows? You really hit the jackpot there. You didn't even know it. She's like, yes.
This is
like
true.
Prim and proper girl.
This is very true. Yeah, it's maybe we should do more of them.
Right, maybe. How about decoding the message or penmanship overall from a ripped piece of paper of a dead man's hand, and then being able to extrapolate all that? Like, that might be one of the more rewatchable scenes now that I think about it. Because as crazy as it is, it was cool to kind of see them kind of leapfrog off of their minds, kickflip off each other's thoughts, and kind of like get to their conclusion. But that's so fucking crazy that they're able to do that. Like,
yeah, it was kind of a bananas thing to go and pull that, but it was just like it was good enough that and surprising enough of a reveal that it was like, okay, like, I can move past it. Like, I didn't really think it over too much. But yeah, like, is it the best thing ever? Like, is it, like, I don't know. Like, I will say this: I don't think that Landor. Like, I believe that Landor wouldn't care necessarily too much about that. That I can get behind.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a little interesting. And then also the whole series of events, right? That unfold perfectly, where he is trying to seek vengeance for the people who raped his daughter after leaving the military ball there, right? That just so happens to be how it coincides with someone looking for a heart so that they can stave off whatever like health infection that they're having right now for their daughter.
Yeah.
And while that's happening within the same, I don't know, 30-mile radius, like, what are the odds of all those series of events happening? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I will say in this, actually, you know what? I hear you on that front, and there's like an unanswerable question that's kind of like a few things that are related to this. So I think I'm going to save more thoughts for that. But I think that you raise a fair point.
My last one here, and this is really my winner, is teasing all the satanic cult stuff, as well as like the witch hunting stuff with Jean Pepe, which is just a great name. Like, I feel like I've been ruined by True Detective season 1, and then every time we get something close to like satanic cult stuff, we're talking about this with The Watcher on Netflix, this, or like, like, I can't get my fix now, and it gets so close. Like, that's so interesting. Like, I want to know why the great grandfather of a witch hunter, and like why they know, and it's like all just accepted that you can like eat the blood of a virgin heart or a hanged man's heart or something like that, and achieve immortality. Very, very intriguing stuff. And again, like, I want a whole off series of Jean Pepe. Just a Jean Pepe fireside chats. Just open up the book and regale me with stories of yesteryear.
That would be actually very interesting too, if you did something with just that character in general. Yeah, I mean, I think there are opportunities here. I mean, this is small scale. I mean, look, it's not getting crazy raving reviews from critics. It's not getting crazy raving reviews from the audience. So
there's no spin-offs or anything. Yeah,
probably not. But I tell you what, like, I'm with you. Like, if you did something with this John Pepe character, or more so Edgar Allan Poe, and it's Melling, I would be interested in delving into that. And as I told you before the show, if anybody's like Wes and like, yeah, you like watching the documentary stuff, like I find obviously that stuff is very interesting and very mind blowing. But if you want to see it in like a fictional form or more just like as a show, Devil in Ohio is definitely something worth looking into. It's an 8-episode limited series on Netflix, worth checking out. If you like thrillers and stuff like that, or you know someone who likes that kind of stuff, it's interesting. It's frustrating as fuck. I'll tell you that. It is frustrating, but it's interesting for sure with that kind of stuff.
Okay. All right. Unanswerable questions. Who would you rather have solving your murder mystery? Edgar Allan Poe or Benoit Blanc?
Oh, come on. I like Edgar Allan Poe in this, and I thought he did a really good job with that one detail. That was very interesting. But, I mean, he doesn't have that. There's no way he puts – I feel like there's no way he puts it together without that bit of information that he got from the woman that worked – the barmaid. No way.
Well, it's fact finding, that's a sign of a good detective, getting information from people that you need. It's not just reading between the lines and solving clues and stuff like that. I'm just saying that was Edgar Allan Poe's first, in theory, first murder solving. He solved a pretty good job.
That's fair.
Benoit Blanc is a world-class murder mystery solver, detective. That's the term, a murder mystery solver.
That's exactly what it is.
Escape room.
Put it on a business card. That's what I want you to introduce me as going forward. Murder mystery solver for hire. Doesn't rhyme, but it works.
There it is. That's the one there. Although now that I'm talking about Benoit Blanc, if he is a career murder mystery solver, maybe that's the guy that I want.
Well, you know what though? In fairness. Rookie. I agree with you. Like, so yes, I want Benoit Blanc, but I've not seen what Benoit Blanc looked like at the beginning. And I don't know what Edgar Allan Poe looked like when he was in his prime, like Benoit Blanc is, as we've seen him. So I think this is truly an unanswerable question, Wes.
All right. This one is very answerable. I'm just an idiot, but this was like a high moment for me. The U.S. Military Academy, West Point, is located on the banks of the Hudson River, right? North. It's like it's what's the word? What's the phrase that I'm looking for? Westchester County. It's like north of New York, but it's like
upstate New York,
lower Manhattan. It's not upstate though.
Hudson Valley.
Yeah, I guess so, but it's not upstate. I don't know, but whatever the case was. Why is it located there? That seems like an odd place to put a military academy. I feel like all of these are strategically built to be like war blockades, defensive blockades, maybe around ports. I'm just wondering why West Point.
It's a great question. I mean, the only thing I could chalk it up to is it's in the 1800s when it was founded. Like it was, I'm pretty sure. Because Lauren was like blown away by it being founded when it was for some reason. But she looked at it. I think it was like 1802 or 1803, something like that when it was founded. But Thomas Jefferson instructed it to be built or whatever it was or formed. So I mean, I know New York's still a big thing now, but New York was like an even bigger thing back then because it's just you didn't have all this other shit. So because wasn't New York the original capital of the United States? Am I remember that correctly?
I think Philadelphia might have been for a while, but it was certainly the largest commerce area. Back when it was New Amsterdam, when the Dutch owned it. But, it flows upwards of New York and Manhattan. Like I get that, but I just wonder why there. Like that seems very back. Like if there was to be an attack from the east, I'm not sure how long it would take people from the military academy in West Point to get there.
I'm sorry, I'm so fixated on the capital thing because I think it was New York and Philadelphia before DC. But yeah, no, it is it is an odd location. Right. I'm not entirely certain on it, but I'm
sure there's a strategic reason that we're just like can't look up or don't have the time to do.
Back then probably, but right now, no, there's probably no real reason. But two things: one, if you're listening to us, let us know right now we're at Change My Mind Pod, but TBD on what our rebranding title is going to be on Twitter.
Let us know.
Yeah. At some point, let us know what the original capitals of the U.S. were before DC. But also, we played against our Army in I think I was only a freshman. It was the only year that we played Army. Those dudes, like, okay,
Mhm.
so we had the smallest team in the Big Ten for sure. But like, I have a lot of big teammates, as you're gonna learn in a few over the next few months. But
Oh, nice.
I had some big teammates, and we were small in the Big Ten. We played Army. Those guys were mooses. Like every single one of them
Of
was
course.
just like a mammoth. It was insane.
Yeah, that's not surprising at all. They're building machines over there.
Sure. I mean, like, I just think back on it, and it's like of all the guys that were like the biggest team that we played across the board had to be Army, no question about it. But
Did they
anyways,
mash against you?
I just definitely didn't face them. I feel like they definitely beat us. I mean, I don't know for a fact, but I'd be willing to bet that they beat us. Um, yeah, I don't know if they mashed though, but I can't tell you that. But anyways, you know what? That's a story to bring up later down the line. Like, you know, when you meet the guys, because someone will
Okay.
remember. Anyways, unanswerable questions for me. At what point? Because Landor said he was going to turn himself into Poe. At what point do you think that Landor was going to turn himself in to Edgar
No,
Allan
I
Poe?
don't think it was going to.
Okay, because that's my next
Yeah.
question. What, like, I guess it's kind of the same thing. Would he ever have turned himself in? Because I just think that he's saying it now in hindsight, but it's like there was never really an opportunity to do it. Like, how are you going to do it other than accepting the punishment?
Yeah, I think he was just maybe he wrote a letter or something like that, like after he was like like graduated, or I don't know, but like I
Maybe,
don't see
yeah,
it.
that would have been
I don't
interesting.
see it happening.
Yeah, like he got caught. Like he got caught red-handed, and that's what it is. And
Yeah.
I still can't believe like the character was like so upset over them being like they cut out somebody else's heart. Like it's right up there with murder. Like let's be honest here.
That's pretty fucked up.
Yeah, this is as bad as it gets. Now, the last one is more, I guess, of a me issue, but I'm curious if you can offer me any advice. Why do I think military officers should have some semblance of detective capabilities?
Um, you would think so, but maybe they're just so used to following orders that they're not used to like seeing
Fair point.
patterns and stuff. Like I don't know. That's
Yeah,
sweeping with a very broad brush, or painting with a very broad brush there.
yeah, we
But
both
yeah,
are.
you would think there would be some sort of crossover between that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just figure with these guys, they're the decision makers. Like, I understand, like they're still taking orders, up the chain and everything, but it just seems odd. Like I feel like they'd have somewhat of a brain. Like, I mean, I'm not saying like you're like an idiot if you can't solve this mystery, but it's just like we couldn't solve it. But like, I don't know, just seemed odd. The Hitchcock guy was a real dick, is what it comes down to. And like that was the
Yeah.
one
Oh
reason why I
yeah.
really asked that question, because like, do you
Yeah.
have a
The
brain?
mutton
Like
chops too. That's what aged the
that's
best. The mutton
do,
chops were pretty good.
do mutton chops automatically make you a dickhead?
I think
Unanswerable question.
so.
Okay, there we
Yeah.
go.
No, I think that's answered. Here's kind of like an unanswerable, or like a scenario here that I want to paint to you. So
Oh,
Landor killed General Fry, right? Cadet Fry, right?
yep,
Leroy
yep,
Fry.
yes.
But then figures out that that the body's heart has been harvested.
Mm-hmm.
So when he kills Bollinger, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember this correctly.
Yes.
He
Yeah. Yeah.
kills Bollinger.
Mm-hmm.
He has to cut his heart out to make the murder match what he just found. So imagine that you're Landor and you're like, man, I gotta cut out this guy's heart now, like just to cover
Yeah.
this up. Like the domino effect of what you're trying to do just to cover up your own murder, and the extent of what you're willing to do to make sure that you don't get caught.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
Is there a question in there?
It's not a question, it's more just a
Okay.
scenario. Just
Yeah.
like imagining being like at that point, you're like, oh man, like is this what I'm gonna have to do now to continue covering this up?
We'll take it a step further. In between those two murders that he did, Wes, he had to kill a cow, and I think it was a chicken, and
That's
cut out
right.
their
Yeah,
hearts
yeah,
too.
yeah.
Yeah, and his whole thing too was like, "Do you think it's like?" They asked him to Hitchcock's point. I'll give him this. He was like, "It's the same person doing those two things," and Landor was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, you think it's the same person that did both these things? Like, come on." And
Yeah.
it's like, no, he's not. You're not entirely wrong, Landor, because someone else cut out the heart, but the murders, Hitchcock's actually
Yeah.
right. So I should retract my statement because he was onto something there. Fuck.
He was onto it, yeah.
Wow. I didn't see that
Yeah.
coming. Jeez. Anyways,
Best performance by a side character here. There's one option here, but I'm going to do an honorable mention for Julia
mhm.
Marquis and her wooden
Yeah,
teeth.
she
She
was
was just
nuts.
whistling through them the whole time. She was very striking, and I'm not sure if in a positive way, but like always like just grabbed my attention on screen.
Yeah.
She was very maybe off-putting.
Yes, she was
I
odd.
I didn't appreciate her presence.
I agree. There was a couple screws loose, and obviously you see at the end, like that's very much the case. I
Yeah.
do have an honorable mention, but we agree on who gets the best performance by a side character here. My honorable mention is Cadet Randolph Ballinger, who you're just talking about, the second guy to get murdered by Landor, played by Fred Hetchinger. I was frustrated when I saw this character because I'm like, fuck, like this guy's gonna get cast as the killer again, and they play it up like he absolutely could be. And I really appreciate the misdirection that there was, because this is a guy who can just get pigeonholed into that kind of a situation because of the roles that I've seen him in. Now I know it's not always going to be the case, so that's good. But he plays a really good like asshole. He's very good at that. But in
Hmm.
the end, we agree. Best performance by a side character is Robert Duvall's Jean Pepe. He was awesome as this expert professor on witchcraft and everything. Really enjoyed it. And like you said, like you didn't even realize that it was Robert Duvall in that moment. Obviously, he's older, and I think he had mutton chops too. So maybe not a
Yeah, yeah,
guarantee
yeah.
that you're a dickhead, but he was. I really enjoyed his two. I think he only had like two scenes in this, right?
Yeah, but he's awesome. And you got a guy like Jean Pepe, and just like his whole backstory. He doesn't have to even say a word. Like you just give me like what his occupation was. Like this guy's a
Yeah.
G.
Yep.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
here for it.
Agreed.
This is
100%.
Who Lost the Movie. This is a late edition. How about Candlelights?
What do
Like
you mean?
how do more places not burn down? Like everything is lit by candles. You go into the bar, like the bar where Patsy was, and where they're
Sure.
like they first Poe and Landor first meet. The whole place is lit up by candles. Great mood lighting, by the way. Great place for a
Mhm.
bar. Like it's awesome.
Sure.
But you're drunk. You're getting knocked around as a tight quarters. Like all you gotta do is just one elbow. The whole place burst up in flames, as we saw at the very end. I mean,
100%.
I don't know how. Is this how the Great Chicago Fire happened?
I think it was a cow in a barn. That's how it happened. That's like the
That could
old
have
wives'
been.
tale. But I see your point. Like because now when I think about any place that has like candles, like the library restaurant in Portsmouth, obviously a place I hold near and dear to my heart. Like they
Sure.
have a bunch of candles and stuff there, but they're all fake candles. And I was thinking about there's another place up
Yep.
here that we go to that like I think has like some candle lights, fake candles, like all of it's electronic stuff. So yeah, and they're all like they have like bars in those restaurants. So I agree with you. Like that's a great point. But I don't know how they
A
lost the
lot
movie.
insurance liability, man. You can't have that shit just lighting around.
They did not have that in the 1830s, I don't think. But anyways, the candidates that we have here, and I think they're all on a pretty similar level here. Maybe one distinct winner, but we have the Superintendent Thayer, who of course is Peter Pettigrew, the same actor there. I'm blanking on his name. Captain Hitchcock. These are the Academy officers. I mean, they're losing guys. They don't actually get their man in the end. They kind of look
Yeah.
like buffoons in some ways throughout the course of it all. We have Augustus Landor, who obviously lost his daughter. And as much as Edgar Allan Poe lets him off, like he doesn't fully get away with it. And of course, whenever you're dealing with a thing like this, it's not fully going to give you the piece that you want at the end. And
Or
then I think the answer for me, Wes, and obviously I'll let you have the floor. The Marquis family is probably going to get my vote.
yeah, the Marquis family, as I feel like, is the clear cut winner here. Although I like the nomination of Thayer and Captain Hitchcock there, because among of all of what you said, like also what was going on underneath their nose was a satanic cult ritual that was going on. So like
Very
that,
true.
they had no idea about it.
By their doctor.
And with their doctor, right? Yeah, exactly. The good doctor. We've relieved a good doctor of his services. So that's a pretty incompetent duo there.
Yeah.
But just the Marquis family, they take it. The whole family goes down.
Yeah. Two bite the dust. The doctor's out of a job. Probably never gonna. You know what? Back then, I bet you people aren't as like thorough on their background checks. I bet you the doctor figured out a situation. But yes, he lost his kids. in the
Yeah,
end.
you go 3-4 towns over, maybe a state over, you start a whole new life with a new name.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah,
bet you it's.
sure.
You know what? I bet you even if you still went to North Adams now in Massachusetts, they're not going to do a crazy background check. People who've been there know what I'm talking about. But anyways, Wes, who do you have
Heyo.
for who won this movie?
It's Harry Mellon.
Mm,
It's Edgar Allan Poe.
mhm,
He's like not really the star of this movie, but he kind of is.
mhm.
He's like the star by a side character.
Yep.
But really, really strong role again. Like maybe an off-brand Benoit Blanc, that type of presence throughout, where he has that southern charm and like everything. Like you just kind of hang on every word he says because of his accent. And again, he plays that dandy wordsmith, charming guy very well.
Hmm.
But also has some really good depth, obviously, as a poet and as
Yeah.
Edgar Allan Poe would. And you see some of those cool moments there. But like you imagine Edgar Allan Poe through learning about him in school and reading his work to be like this really haunted guy, but to see him kind of jovial and full of life, I thought was a really cool interpretation of it.
Yeah. But
Just
also
kind of
still,
like embracing death.
yeah, still like he's full of life, like you said, but he's still got those dark twists to him that are quite odd. And like
Oh,
I would,
sure.
like we said, would love to see Netflix do a little more of this. Probably not going to happen, but yes, I
Yeah.
agree. Like Christian Bale gets like the honorable mention because he did a good job. Basically, he just showed I can show up and I'm going to give an awesome performance. But Harry Melling is the big winner here because I only know him as playing it's Dudley, right? Dursley that he plays, and then
Yeah.
he's the villain in The Old Guard. I don't really know if I've seen him in anything else, but he did a good job in both of those roles. And now he's in this. And really, like, I don't know if I'd say he stole the show from me because I love Christian Bale's character, but you could argue that he stole the show, did an outstanding job. Give me more of him and more shit. And I mean, doesn't matter what role it is because he can play a litany of different things. He's shown that over the course of his career now. So, yeah, definitely a big win for Harry Melling.
All right. I love it. That wraps up the exit survey for the pale blue eye. Nice squeaky fart there to mark it. First review of the year of 2023. 85 for Nick, 83 for me. Let's take it over now to